She said it like she was commenting on the weather, flat, almost distracted, as if the words weren't designed to land but to float past me. Connection isn't a need, it's a preference, like flavored water. I remember the clink of her spoon against the ceramic bowl. We were sitting at the kitchen table. She was stirring yogurt into oatmeal like it mattered more than anything I could say. Maybe it did. I didn't respond right away. I watched her for a moment, the way her hair fell forward as she leaned into the bowl, the light tapping of her nails against the spoon handle. All so normal, all so familiar. And suddenly, it meant nothing. The words didn't make me angry. Not right away. They didn't trigger a fight, or an outburst. They just registered. Like a system alert in the corner of your vision. A quiet notification that something vital had just shut down. I nodded once. Not to agree, just to mark the moment. To timestamp the break in the wire. She didn't look up. Later that night, I lay awake next to her. She fell asleep quickly, back turned, legs tucked under like always. I used to feel warmth from that. A kind of quiet closeness, even in silence. But that night, I felt alone in the bed. Not lonely, alone. There's a difference. Lonely aches. Alone clarifies. Connection isn't a need. She meant it. That was the part that twisted in my chest, not like pain, but like recognition. She wasn't provoking. She was explaining. Justifying something I hadn't seen yet. I didn't try to change her mind. Didn't argue. I think she expected I would. But some things, when spoken, don't invite a response. They draw a line. Her words were a flag planted on the other side of that line. I let the night pass. Got up early. Made coffee. Packed her lunch. She smiled when she took the bag from me, almost like the old days, but I saw it now for what it was, surface maintenance. That morning, I went for a walk after she left. I took the long route through the park, the one we used to stroll together on Sunday mornings. I passed our old bench, the one near the bridge where she once said she felt most at peace with me. Back then, it meant everything. Now, it felt like a scene I'd visited from someone else's life. I sat there anyway, just long enough to replay the night before in my head. Her voice, calm and almost annoyed that I'd misunderstood what connection meant. Like I'd made a big deal out of an accessory. Maybe I had. But something shifted in me that night. Not rage. Not sadness. It was cleaner than that. Detachment. Not the bitter kind. The kind that arrives after clarity. The kind that doesn't panic, or plead, or demand answers. The kind that watches. That records. I went home. She wasn't back yet. I opened my laptop, opened a document, and wrote down her words. Connection isn't a need. It's a preference. Like flavored water. Then I saved the file and titled it, The Moment You Lost Me. Not for her. For me. To remember. To never lie to myself later, when the memory softens or nostalgia tries to repaint it. She had drawn the line. I had stepped back from it. And the moment the thread broke, I didn't reach to tie it. I reached for the scissors. It started with her phone. The same device she used to leave face up, unlocked, screen dimmed like it had nothing to hide. Now it never left her side. Screen flipped down. Notifications muted. A new passcode she didn't bother explaining. At first I gave it space. Privacy's not a sin. But patterns are. She began taking weekend errands that used to take an hour and now devoured half the day. Groceries, returns. Just needed a drive to clear my head. The first few times, I pretended not to notice, but I did. She'd come back with one grocery bag and a strangely uplifted mood. Not the relaxed kind. The kind that tries to fake casual, overcompensated small talk, forced humming. Once, she even baked. She never baked unless she was avoiding something. Then there was our anniversary, a day she used to prepare for a week in advance. This year, she forgot. Claimed she needed solo time to recalibrate emotionally. No card. No dinner. No acknowledgement. Just an offhand comment at 10 p.m. when I reminded her what day it was. Oh, she said, eyes flicking toward the TV. Guess that explains why you were quiet all day. I told her I understood. That we'd do something another time. She nodded but never followed up. The next morning, while she was showering, I checked the trash bin on her phone. Not her texts. She'd learned to delete those permanently, but her email app, where people forget to cover their tracks. There were receipts, rideshare confirmations, a boutique restaurant downtown, 2 tickets, not one, timed right in the middle of her solo recalibration. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Confrontation is a one-time bullet. You don't pull the trigger when you're still mapping the target. You gather. You watch. So I started logging things, quietly. Every errand time-stamped. Every receipt copied. I created a folder in a hidden drive, password protected. Labeled it with something boring enough to never invite her curiosity. 2022 insurance reviews. I noticed she began dressing differently on weekends. Subtly, more detail in the makeup. A certain polish to the look that didn't match the grocery store alibi. She'd spritz perfume before leaving and return home with the faintest trace of a different scent under it. Once, she came back wearing lipstick that wasn't the shade she'd left with. That detail stayed with me longer than I expected. It wasn't just that she reapplied. It was that she changed. Midday. Mid-errand. When I asked, she looked at me blankly. Oh, I guess I just grabbed the wrong one from my bag. She hadn't. She knew. Her fabrications weren't careless. They were just uninterested in precision. As if the truth didn't matter enough to tailor the falsehood. I stopped asking questions. Instead, I began syncing our calendars. Nothing obvious. I mirrored her shared entries to my private one, noting what she omitted or shifted last minute. I compared receipts to those time blocks. Most of them didn't line up. She'd claimed to be at a yoga class 2 Sundays ago. The receipt said she paid for brunch at 11:42 a.m. in the Arts District. I screenshotted it, saved it, dated it, moved on. There was a shift in her tone, too. Less affection. Not cold, just indifferent. We'd be mid-conversation, and she'd scroll through her phone like I was filler between notifications. It wasn't neglect. It was redesign. Her disconnection was intentional. Not spontaneous, not circumstantial, curated, measured. As if she were tapering off an old habit before replacing it. One night, she stood by the kitchen window sipping wine, staring out like something in the dark was whispering to her. I watched her for a long time, from the hallway. She didn't move, didn't flinch. She looked content. Not in love, not angry, just free. But she hadn't left. Not yet. And that's what told me the truth. She was waiting. For something. Or someone. Or maybe just for me to fade fully into the background so her absence wouldn't seem cruel, only inevitable. I decided I wouldn't give her that. I wouldn't fade. I'd watch. And when the time came, I'd make sure she knew that I had seen everything, quietly, patiently, and with full clarity. Because the only thing colder than being left is knowing you were quietly prepared to leave first. I stopped initiating. Not just intimacy, everything. No more spontaneous dinners. No more weekend drives or late-night talks. I let the silence grow roots between us. If she noticed, she didn't mention it. If anything, she seemed more at ease. Less guilt to manage, maybe? Less need for pretense. I wasn't cold. I was calculated. The version of me that once asked for closeness, that version retired quietly. In his place stood someone different. Not detached, but deliberate. I smiled when necessary. I played along with our routines, but I watched everything. She became more careless. Or maybe she just stopped caring who she was becoming around me. Passwords changed again. Her phone now accompanied her to the bathroom, to the laundry room, to the mailbox. Always face down, always guarded. She began heading out with a personal carry bag, subtle, compact, always by the door. A book, maybe a sweater, her water bottle. I knew that bag. It used to live in the closet for weekend getaways. Now it lived by the door, like it was waiting for someone else to pick it up. I didn't guess. I didn't theorize. I documented. Every expense, every timestamp, every calendar inconsistency went into a private spreadsheet, clean, precise, color-coded. I had columns for dates, excuses, actual locations, financial anomalies. I knew how to build a case. Not a confrontation, a contingency. She once told me I had a gift for data. An emotional analyst. She joked early in our marriage. Back then, it made her feel understood. Now, it made her vulnerable. A week later, I hired the investigator. He didn't ask unnecessary questions, just nodded when I laid it out. "You've already done half my job," he said. I told him I wasn't looking for revenge. Just confirmation. Not because I doubted what was happening, but because when it all came down, I didn't want there to be any room for denial. No vague half-truths. No emotional fog. Just facts. He asked for a list of times she'd be running errands. I gave him the next 5 weekends, complete with windows of availability, suspected rendezvous points, and her pattern of movement. He looked at me with something between respect and concern. "You're not new to this," he said. "I'm not," I replied. "But I never thought I'd need to be." At home, I adjusted. I moved our shared finances into a viewing-only mode. No sudden changes. Just prep. I created a private account under my own name, not to hide anything, to protect what I built. I updated my passwords, my documents, made digital copies of everything important, and saved them on a secure drive she didn't know existed. Not because I feared sabotage, but because I no longer trusted inertia. I started therapy. Remote sessions, evening slots. Not for grief, for grounding. I didn't want to be the man unraveling quietly while pretending to be composed. I wanted to stay ahead of myself, not just ahead of her. In sessions, I didn't talk about what she did. I talked about who I was becoming. And the truth is, I liked him. He didn't beg. He didn't explain. He didn't hope against evidence. He adapted. At night, we still ate dinner together. She'd tell me small stories about her day, carefully edited, wrapped in everyday normalcy. I'd nod, ask soft questions, never pressing. She took that as disinterest. I let her. She thought I was withdrawing. Emotionally, maybe. But strategically? I was never more engaged. Connection wasn't a need, she had said. I believed her now. So I stopped offering it. Stopped feeding the illusion of intimacy she used to sanitize her double life. Because the moment someone tells you they don't need to connect, they've already connected elsewhere. And if they're building another bridge, you don't blow yours up in response. You build a gate at the end of it, quietly. And when it's time, you close it without a sound. The first report from the PI came on a Thursday. Plain envelope. No return address. Delivered by hand, slipped into my locked mailbox like it was just another bank statement. I waited until I was alone, after she left for her yoga workshop, downtown, before I opened it. The photos weren't blurry. They never are in real life, only in movies. She wasn't just having lunch. She was leaning across a small outdoor table, eyes fixed on him like gravity had shifted. Laughing. Her hand on his forearm, not briefly, resting. Possessive, not flirtatious. One photo showed them exiting a boutique hotel. No rush. No shame. He held the door for her. She touched his back as they walked out. They looked like a couple. Not a fling. A pattern. It wasn't random. It wasn't new. The report included timestamps and locations that stretched back months. What I had thought was a recent disconnection was actually a well-laid construction, a parallel life with its own timeline. Weekend errands were regular appointments. Her healing space wasn't abstract. It had a face, a name, and a room number. And his name? I recognized it. Not a stranger. Not someone she'd met in passing. It was someone she'd known for years. A friend of the couple we used to double date with. I remembered him from dinner parties, from idle chats about music and travel. He had stood in my kitchen once, complimenting the espresso machine she picked out for my birthday. She used to joke that he was too introspective to be dangerous. Apparently not. That's when I realized something deeper. This wasn't just betrayal of trust. It was betrayal of history. She hadn't stumbled into this. She'd circled the runway, waited for her chance, then landed softly, all while telling me connection was a preference. A preference she had pursued with remarkable consistency. The PI included texts they had exchanged. Not full threads, just snippets recovered from synced devices and careless screenshots. Enough to read between the lines. Inside jokes. Weekend plans. Emotional check-ins. At one point she wrote, "I'm so tired of pretending. With him, everything feels like a role I forgot how to play." I closed the file. Sat back. Let the words sink in without resisting them. I wasn't surprised. What shocked me wasn't that she lied. It was how long she rehearsed the lie before performing it. She had kept me in the theater while building another stage. I thought about confronting her that night. The urge was strong. The evidence was concrete. The betrayal was layered, undeniable, intimate in a way that couldn't be passed off as a mistake. But I didn't. Because I realized something more valuable than the need for answers. I had them already. And the only thing I lacked was timing. So I waited. Not because I was afraid. Because I wanted her to live in that comfort zone a little longer. To enjoy the illusion that I was still playing the role she assigned me. The disconnected husband, the fading light, the safe default she could blame later. Meanwhile, I revised my plan. The next morning, I moved half of my assets into protected accounts, legally clean, carefully shielded. Not hidden, just unreachable. I spoke with the forensic accountant, quiet voice, early hour. I didn't flinch when he confirmed my instincts. There's more exposure here than emotional damage, he said. She's been using joint assets to fund personal outings. It won't look good for her in arbitration. I thanked him, took notes, hung up. By the end of the week, I had a second file: financial patterns, statement gaps, unreported transfers. She hadn't just replaced connection with preference. She'd monetized the preference. She was using my stability to fund her escape, emotionally and materially. A soft pivot, cushioned by plausible deniability, orchestrated under my nose. But the thing about building a second life? You still live in the first one while you do it. And I was still there, watching, quietly cutting the rope she didn't know she depended on. She didn't know it yet, but the ground beneath her was thinning, quietly. And the next time she jumped, it wouldn't be there to catch her. I made the final transfer that Monday morning. The last piece of income rerouted to a private account she couldn't access. Every paycheck from that point on would land quietly in a place she didn't know existed. I wasn't hiding it. I was protecting it. By the time she rolled over in bed, mumbled something about forgetting to buy oat milk, I'd already spoken to the divorce attorney. Initial consultation complete. Strategy in place. All digital, all discreet. She still thought she had time. That's what made it easy. In the evenings, we shared space like coworkers forced to cohabitate. Polite. Shallow. She still asked me if I needed anything when she ordered delivery. I still said no. We sat side by side on the couch sometimes, the glow of a muted show on our faces, pretending the silence was rest. It wasn't rest. It was rot, and I let it spread, inch by inch, while I fortified everything else. I stopped talking to our mutual friends, or rather, I listened more and revealed less. They noticed. One even messaged me. "You good? You've been quiet lately." I told him I was. Just processing some things. He didn't ask what. That week, I met again with the forensic accountant. We went deeper, not just where the money was going, but what it suggested. The timeline was damning. Repeated charges from a boutique hotel, flagged purchases under his name but routed through our joint card. Once, even a concert ticket logged under a business expense. All small details, but together? A pattern. Best case, the accountant said. This makes alimony difficult for her to claim. Worst case for her? Misuse of marital funds, especially if we bring this to a judge. I nodded. I don't want a war, I said. You're not starting one, he replied. You're ending one that's been staged against you. At home, I let her keep the upper hand, or so she thought. She still moved around like the queen of plausible deniability, still took her solo drives, still answered questions with half smiles and vague deflections. Her phone still lived in her back pocket, but she no longer checked herself in mirrors when leaving the house. She believed I had stopped looking, and in a way I had, but not the way she thought. I wasn't looking for signs anymore. I had the signs. I had the maps, the proof, the blueprint of her betrayal. Now I was looking at exits, safe ones, clean ones. I kept a copy of the files, the photos, the receipts, the timelines, stored in a cloud drive, password protected, with one trusted friend listed as a recovery contact. Not because I feared she'd try to erase anything, but because I refused to be caught unprepared. She once told me I was too calm when things went wrong. She was right. Because panic is a luxury you lose when you've been lied to slowly. So I cooked dinner one night. Her favorite, grilled salmon, garlic asparagus, roasted potatoes. She came home late, dropped her bag by the door, looked surprised. "This looks amazing," she said, kissing my cheek. I smiled. Felt like doing something different. She poured wine. We ate in near silence, broken only by small talk about a coworker she didn't like and a show she wanted to start watching. I nodded, smiled at the right times, took another bite. The taste was clean. Final. She looked across the table at one point, eyes soft. "Thanks for this. I know things have been strange. I appreciate the effort." I looked at her carefully, like I was measuring something deeper than her words. "Of course," I said. "Connection might not be a need, but closure is." She tilted her head. "What do you mean?" I smiled, setting down my fork. "Nothing yet. But I will." She laughed awkwardly, unsure if it was a joke. Then she changed the subject. But the shift had started. The rope had frayed. And all that remained was the snap. She came home to silence. No TV humming in the background. No dinner on the stove. Just a dim light over the kitchen island and a slim file folder sitting dead center on the marble countertop. She hesitated in the doorway, keys still in hand. The house wasn't empty, I made sure of that. I stood by the back window, looking out over the yard, arms folded, heart steady. I didn't turn around when she walked in. Didn't speak, just listened to the shift in her breathing as she saw the folder. She called my name once, lightly, testing the temperature in the room. I turned slowly, met her eyes without anger, without warmth. Go ahead, I said quietly. Open it. She didn't move at first, just stood there like someone realizing they were being watched in a place they thought was safe. Then, wordless, she stepped forward and flipped the cover. First page, photos, her and him. Lunch, a kiss on the cheek, arms around each other outside the hotel. She blinked slow, said nothing. Second page, hotel receipts, time-stamped, laid out alongside her calendar entries and rideshare logs. Then the texts, snippets, carefully selected, enough to paint the picture without requiring interpretation. Next, financial analysis. Use of joint funds, missing transfers, boutique purchases traced back to her. Wellness days. At the bottom, a business card, divorce attorney, one for a forensic accountant, and a note, written in my hand. You said connection wasn't a need, so I stopped needing. She sat down, not dramatically, not broken, just lowered herself, like her legs forgot how to argue with gravity. She reached for the pages again, flipped back as if seeing them twice might change the story. I stayed standing, watching. She finally spoke, voice soft. Why didn't you say anything? I leaned on the counter, hands flat against the cold stone. You already did, I replied. Her eyes met mine, and for the first time in months, there was no script. No evasion. Just a kind of crumbling silence that didn't know how to pretend anymore. She opened her mouth, closed it, looked back down. I didn't think you'd notice, she whispered. I raised an eyebrow. No. You didn't think I'd act? She shook her head slowly, like she was trying to dislodge reality from her thoughts. I didn't plan for it to go this far. I nodded. That's the thing about lies. They always go further than the people telling them expect. She reached out, touched the edge of the folder. What happens now? I took a breath, let it settle in my chest before answering. You can take the weekend. Pack what you need. I won't be here. She looked up sharply. You're leaving? No. You are. Her lip trembled, and for a second, I saw the version of her I used to protect. The one I used to build around. But she wasn't that person anymore. Maybe she hadn't been for a long time. This doesn't have to be ugly, she said softly. I gave a thin smile. That's the first honest thing you've said in a while? She nodded, slowly. No argument, no apology. Just the stunned acceptance of a collapsing world she thought she controlled. I walked past her, calm, not triumphant, just done. Stopped at the stairs, turned slightly. Connection is a choice, I said, echoing the words she once used to dismiss me. And then I climbed the stairs, leaving her in the kitchen with her own wreckage. I didn't speak to her after that night. I left the house for the weekend like I said. When I came back Monday morning, she was gone. Her closet half empty, the key on the counter, the silence permanent. No note. No calls. She assumed, I'm sure, that she'd control the narrative. And for a brief moment she did. 2 weeks later I heard through a friend, someone neutral, that she'd begun telling people I had emotionally checked out, that I was cold, distant. That one day, without warning, I just left. Classic framing, the passive defection. I didn't react, didn't defend. But I released the file, not publicly, not vengefully, just selectively, to the right people. One by one, those closest to us received it. No commentary, just the facts, the timeline, the photos, the receipts. A short message from me. I won't be speaking about this. The truth is in the file. I sent it to our closest mutual friends, to her sister, to the man's wife. That message changed everything. She called me. Not angry, breathless, shattered. She hadn't known. Not really. She said she had suspicions, but nothing concrete. He had covered his tracks, just not all of them. She thanked me. Then she called a lawyer. By the end of the month, his marriage was over. His job, which relied heavily on a clean reputation, came under review. Word spread fast in our overlapping social circles, not because I spread it, but because the silence around the truth broke its own dam. She became persona non grata, not because I painted her that way, but because people saw the receipts, the evidence, the performance, and they made their own judgments. A friend who once told me, "She's intense but loyal," stopped replying to her texts. Her inner circle hollowed out. The brunch invites dried up. Her book club removed her from the group thread. The fallout wasn't dramatic. It was slow, suffocating. The kind that comes when trust evaporates, not explodes. The final blow? She'd paused her career 2 years ago, banking on the financial stability of our marriage. Had plans to launch a lifestyle blog, maybe a wellness brand, things she never quite built but always talked about. Now, with joint accounts frozen and legal protections in place, she had to move in with her sister. The luxury SUV she'd insisted on leasing, because it aligned with her brand, was repossessed. She posted a vague quote on social media. "Sometimes we break to grow." Nobody commented.